see it over there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So welcome to the state of the county. I am Rob Moore, the owner of Arbor Mortgage Group and also a board member. I'm also a title sponsor, and I want to recognize and acknowledge my other title sponsor partners. I do see Cascade Insurance in the house. Where are they? Come on. Patrick, you're in the back. Thanks to them for sponsoring this very cool event. We have a great panel. You're going to hear about them in a bit. Patrick, anybody wants insurance of any sort? They should call you, right? All right, there's other insurance agents in the room, but they are the title sponsor. We're going to throw some love Patrick's way. Also, Mid-Oregon Credit Union sponsored this today. I saw Kyle, Alice, and others, so thank you to you for your dollars, your marketing dollars. There's Kyle, he's giving me the wave. And again, Arbor Mortgage Group, we're a lender in town here, so we love the Chamber. The Chamber does a ton. It's all about Carl in the Chamber. Carl is C, connections. We're all talking, getting to know people. There's connections in the room. A is for advocacy. We do a lot of work, lobbying, and things of that nature. R, relationships, no?
Resources.
Resources is R. So we're providing resources, things like this event, so you can learn about your community, see what our elected officials are up to. And then, of course, L is for leadership. We have lots of programs to build leaders and to sustain leaders in the area. So I'm going to get this moving forward. I know Jamie's in the house somewhere. Are you to my right or to my left? Where'd she go? She's over there. But before I do that, I want to remind you that the SAGE Awards are taking place September the 7th. What are the SAGE Awards? It's an opportunity for us to recognize and honor businesses that win in different categories and to thank everybody for contributing to this community in whatever it is that they do. So make sure you look for tickets on that, buy a table, attend on your own. If you want to learn more about that, see Robin or call Robin at the Chamber. So I am now going to hand this off to Jamie, who's going to introduce our panelists, and I'm really looking forward to this.
Great job, Rob. Past chair of the Bench Chamber. All right, thanks everybody for being here. I'm Jamie Crispin, EVP at the Bench Chamber. So excited to be able to participate in something like this. Would the members of the Advocacy Council raise their hands? Because you're awesome and help us put this together. Yeah, give them a big old round of applause. Thank you so much. And so as we get started here, as many of you know, it's a big deal to serve as a county commissioner in a region growing such as ours. I'd like to honor that joining us this evening, we have Commissioner Tony DeBone, who is our current chair, and he has been serving for 7 years with us. And so thank you for that, Commissioner DeBone. Also joining us this evening is one of our newer commissioners, but not new to the community and in service. Joining us since the beginning of 2017 for a year and a half, please welcome Commissioner Phil Henderson. And then, of course, having served us for a decade and been in service prior to that, we would love to honor the 10 years and the last year of this time and this special moment with Commissioner Tammy Bailey. What's in store for your top 10 since you're on the way out. So that's going to be good. So with that, I also would like to thank all our media partners in the room. We've been very fortunate at our What's Brewing and at our state of addresses to have their relationship, and we really appreciate it. Be sure you follow them and check it out. We know we've got the Central Oregon Daily recording this, so you can see it on TV. We've got the KTVZ in the room. I know the Bulletin's in the room. Any other media in the room that I don't want to miss or point out?
Cascade Business News.
Cascade Business News, awesome. Anybody else? Source Weekly, so fantastic. Anybody else? That's fabulous. So thank you, everybody. Give them a round of applause. That's some really great coverage. Certainly like to honor and welcome any other elected officials in the room. I know our county assessor is here. Where is he at? Scott? Scott with one T. Give him a round of applause. I don't know that I see anybody else in the room, but if not, oh yes, our administrator, I love Tom Anderson. Big round of applause. He has to put up with the commissioners. So with that, I don't want to hold up a great evening. The commissioners will share with you a number of things that you see in your program and more. And we want to give them plenty of time so that we can make sure we not only get to the famous top 10, but get out to the audience for some Q&A, right? So how about that? Commissioners, who's going to kick us off?
Right here.
All right.
Can
Can I just start with the,
Sure.
they ran out of smaller glasses, so they had to fill
That's how that
one.
happened.
So I just wanted to, those that are judging on our glass choice here, they said they didn't have smaller glasses, they ran out. So, and they just filled it to the top, so I needed to say that. I feel better, I grew up, Catholic, so there.
Go ahead and drink.
Oh, I will. If I finish this though, the top 10 is going to be really
Well, thank you very much for having us this evening. I'm Tony DeBone, the current chair, as was mentioned. We're honored to be here, and I have a proposal. How about whatever's said in this room stays in this room? Is that okay with you? But no, this is your Deschutes County government. In fact, yeah, DA Hummel's here. I was looking for the other elected officials, so thanks for joining us this evening. So we're going to do quick introductions. I'm honored to be serving. So we are the elected board of the citizens for your Deschutes County services. It's a county-wide seat. Remember all the citizens inside and outside the city. So a lot of big services we provide for everyone. Introductions. So I'm Phil Henderson. As James said, I've been here on the commission a year and a half, but it's my 29th year in Bend, actually. I live in Bend. Been a member of the chamber for quite a long time in business. Heber's a fairly young lawyer in my 30s, and then went into the construction industry and then my own building business the last few years before I ran. I've learned a lot. It's quite, people talk about, well, we're business people should get into politics, into public policy, and it's true. And so all of you who are business people should do that. You should bring a lot of skills to it. It's a little bit different world than business is and running your own business, etc. But I've had a lot of help from the other two commissioners, learned a lot, and we've got, as you'll hear tonight, a lot of challenges going forward, and a lot of fun. Thanks for all coming out tonight. We hope to kind of show you what's going on a little bit around the rest of the county. Bend kind of gets focused on Bend a lot of times, but it's a great county. 3 other big cities and things going on everywhere, you can tell in the news. So thanks, welcome, and let's have fun.
great. And my name is Tammy Beatty, and as Jamie mentioned, I'm finishing up my 3rd term, so I've been in office for 11.5 years. I also serve as the chair of the Oregon Transportation Commission, which oversees the Department of Transportation for the state. And so I'm honored to serve in that capacity and will continue to do that. And I also wanted to point out that you will have an election in front of you in November. And we have Ms. Patty Adair, who is here, and Mr. James Cook, who is here as well. And I encourage you to get to know the individuals in that race. Okay, I can mention Amy Lowe's as well again for Tony's race, but I was just asked by KTVZ in terms of what do you enjoy about something like this, and it's the fact that all of you are making time to come out and understand and learn about your local government. We affect your lives every day, and I think that that's an important interaction that we have, that you know who we are and how to access us and what we do. So let's get it kicked off.
If anybody wants to, there's still some chairs out front. We won't test. And there's a bunch of chairs here.
It's like church, they're nervous.
So a sense of place. Deschutes County, 180,000 people or so, probably past that now, depending on what numbers you look at. One of the interesting topics, or one of the interesting statistics, 72% urban, 28% rural. So most people do live in the cities. 79% of all the land is publicly owned, though, so it's BLM, Forest Service, and other public lands. I had a friend recently, we were talking about land use, and I was explaining how we do a lot of land use decisions. He said, well, we need to protect all that farmland in the county. And he made a statement along the lines of the whole county being EFU parcel was what he was referring to. I said, oh, no, 79% is the Forest Service and trees. We only deal with about 20% of the land here in Deschutes County is publicly, privately owned land use of the state of Oregon. Not that it's good or bad, but just to put it in perspective, most of that is the jurisdiction of the federal government. Median income is $54,000, $55,000. We're slightly above the state average here in Deschutes County. So it's always good to think that we do have a vibrant economy, tourism, natural resources, but we've also seen a lot of diversity in our economy. And the future is bright.
Great, so next we're going to mix it up a little bit with a video. And before Whitney presses play, one of the questions that we get asked a lot is, what does the county commissioner do? And a cute story that I like to share is that my daughter was in the 4th grade and her teacher approached me and said, Tammy, I know you're super busy, but we're studying government, and I was just wondering, and I cut her off a little bit and said, oh, no, you bet, yeah, I'll come in, and, you know, we're happy to, just let me know when, and she said, oh, no, do you know the mayor of Bend? Because I was just wondering if maybe you could connect me, because I think they would understand what a mayor does. I don't think they're going to understand what a county commissioner does. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, but can I come in too? And so this is a video that the Association of Oregon Counties put together to talk about what is it actually that a county does.
Oregon's 36 counties weave together the fabric that makes our state a great place to live, work, and play. Most of us probably know what county we live in, but do you really know what counties do? When you drove to work, did you use a county road? Probably. Counties are responsible for maintenance on the largest share of Oregon's road system. Did you come across some construction along the way? County planning departments issue building permits, conduct inspections, and process land use applications. Counties are also responsible for the places you love to go for recreation, like county parks and county fairs. Are you worried about what might happen to Fido if he gets lost? Counties oversee animal control too, helping him get back home, safe and sound. When disaster strikes, counties are on the front lines, overseeing emergency management for wildfires, earthquakes, floods, landslides, and other hazards. And county sheriffs operate the jails and provide law enforcement to keep our communities safe. County health departments look out for our children, the elderly, people with disabilities, and protect public health to ensure our communities stay healthy. County Veteran Services officers provide support and resources for the men and women who served our nation. Getting married? County clerks issue marriage licenses. Buying or selling a house? County clerks record sales and property deeds and archive historic documents. Voted lately? County clerks conduct every election and count all the votes. While county services are vast, these vital public services are provided efficiently and effectively under the direction of an elected board of county commissioners. But only 17 cents of every property tax dollar, on average, goes to county government. That's right, only 17 cents of every property tax dollar. The remaining 83 cents of your property tax dollar goes to schools, cities, and special districts. Counties make the best use of every cent to ensure the highest quality of life for all Oregonians. Want to learn more about Oregon counties? Visit OregonCounties.org.
So there it is.
So I think at this point we're just going to go through some of the highlights of things that we're really talking about there that maybe you don't know about. And we're going to talk about community services, the ones that bold there, garbage and recycling or solid waste. We're going to talk about that a little more later too, but that's a big part of what the county does. We run the landfill, we run the transfer stations, we connect with all the garbage haulers, etc. And we're in the process now of looking at how we're going to go, where that's going to go in the future. Natural resource is a big thing. We have a county forester, and we're very active in the forest policy that the Forest Service Commissioner Bone said creates for Deschutes County. We as a county, through our county forester, and we also have an additional person that works, is very involved in natural resources. We're involved in a lot of the planning with regard to forest management, forest restoration, forest practices, and fire prevention. And so that's a big part of our forestry department and natural resources.
So the Health and Human Services area, we've got a health department at Deschutes County. So we have over 1,000 employees at Deschutes County, but 300 of them work in the health department. And it's interesting, I remember when I first got elected and I went to a department meeting and the rooms were just full and overflowing with the health department. I'm like, oh, it really put it in perspective for me. But the health department is behavioral health, mental health, in public health. So outbreaks, but also pool inspections, behavioral health, addictions, and mental health. People that really are having clinically diagnosed issues that don't have other resources. The health department is there for all of those services. Veteran services, a veteran service officer, we have a few folks that really make a great presence here in Deschutes County. The citizens voted a few years ago to add more dollars to that. I went to the legislature and it almost got changed around, the slice of the pie there, but we do get dollars from the state and we invest locally for the veteran services. And I can't tell you how many times I've had a World War II or a Vietnam veteran come to me and say thank you for having those services available in a timely manner. Sometimes we have a veteran coming in and say, well, we'll get to you in a month or 5 weeks. But in Deschutes County, we really respond quickly. And we're really proud of our general services here. So Scott Langdon, thanks for joining us tonight. But the assessor, the treasurer, and the clerk, that's part of any county pretty much around the country. The services that happen, assess the value of the properties, apply the tax bill to it, collect those taxes for all of the jurisdictions in the county, distribute those tax dollars, and then voting to elections. So Nancy Blankenship and Wayne Lowry do a great job in those departments.
We also have, maybe some of you have read about 911. We are the governing body of 911. We have a radio system that we are working diligently to make sure meets the needs of our public safety partners. They noted the sheriff's office. We also have the district attorney's office. While our district attorney is a state official and individually elected, the deputy district attorneys within that great office and the victims assistance advocates are also county employees. We also have justice court, and so if you're cited into court, I may have been in Bend recently, but not into justice court. One of the opportunities that you have would be to, if you live in Sisters, Lapine, or Redmond, you have an opportunity to go to those communities instead of coming into the city of Bend, which is a service that we like to provide to make sure that you have your needs met within your own community. We also have community justice, and so we have parole and probation as well as the juvenile department. And we like to make sure that we are meeting those needs, also restoring families, making sure that our kids stay out of the justice system, and so that preventative work, working with families, but then also should a youth find themselves within the juvenile justice system, how we work there and make sure that we have those services available to them. And then the medical examiner's office, which was also not noted, I will tell you about a group of individuals that have just incredible hearts for the work that they do, serving our community in very stealth sort of ways. And so the medical examiner's office is an important piece to the county as well. And then we also are the governing body for the Black Butte Branch Service District as well as Sun River. And I think we've killed this slide.
Well, no, I just did the poll.
Okay.
I did them all. So I want to give a heads up to community development. Nick Lilacs here, community development director. They're a huge part of our county. I think we see more of them because of our land use issues, our planning issues, etc. And the Fair and Expo Center. Fair starts tomorrow, everybody. You come out there. It's kind of smoky today, but it's not like last year, so we're hoping it's going to be a great fair. And then transportation, roads, we're talking about.
So then we better point out we have our deputy district attorney wandering, our deputy district, our county administrator wandering around somewhere. Eric Kropp over here. We have Lee Randall, who's here as well, facilities. Chris Doty, road, and then do we have other county folks that I didn't see earlier? Who did I?
Lee is here.
I mentioned Lee. Ms. Whitney, Ms. Whitney Hale, who's helped with the presentation. Judith Ure, who you will learn about in just a little bit. I've noted her every year for the top 10, and she finally has made it here today. So, how's that, Phil? Did I do all right? Okay, good. Okay, good. Okay, property taxes. How are we spending their money?
Well, we have our board meetings. These are the folks that we interact with at our board meetings and work sessions, so it's good to see everybody here today. So that video showed the property taxes around the state. It talked about 16% of the bill. So right here you can see, as calculating a bill for a Bend resident, 16.9%. And the schools are a big part of this in the city of Bend. We have multiple rates that we represent: the 911 district, the 4-H district, the general fund, and public safety rates. So we were able to dial in some of these rates this year. Thank you very much. By lowering the taxes, and we've done it 2 years in a row, so the general fund rate is going down by 6 cents. Yeah, I'm sorry, that slide, yeah. are we? Okay. Well, okay. So yeah, I was getting ahead of myself on coordination here. So this is showing that 20% number. So I think of it as 20% inside the city and a little bit more than 20% outside the city, but it's really 16.9 at this point for the city event. So these are the percentages: the general fund, the 911, and the sheriff's office. It really puts it in perspective for each dollar that we do pay, what those percentages are.
So one of the reasons we did the dollar thing was to, we talk about lowering our property tax rates, you know, in the Deschutes, for Deschutes County, all we really can affect is the general fund, the 911 fund, and theoretically the sheriff's fund, if the sheriff goes along with that as well. But I think the dollar that we showed is really, that's a small portion, but everybody thinks that taxes all come from the county, even though the city and school districts, et cetera. I think that's why we wanted to just kind of break that out. With regard to the decreases, you know, this was over the last 2 years, this goal I had when I ran for office was there's just this automatic increase in Oregon, which is not typical of every state. It's really something that's only been in Oregon for 20 years, where automatically your assessed valuation goes up 3% every year. It doesn't sound very much, except if you live in the same house 10 years, you're paying 30% more county taxes. But there 20 years, you're paying 60% more taxes. We've essentially, by rolling back 3 cents last year and 3 cents this year, we've rolled back about the equivalent of a year and a half of this automatic increase. And that's just, you know, something, it's one of the places that if you want to be not spending more money on all the different government services, it's one of the ways we can do something and been successful in doing that.
And I think it's important to note that coming off the recession, which we were one of the hardest hit counties in, actually in the United States, making sure that our reserves are at a level where we can weather another storm, which we know that our economy is not as cyclical as it has been in the past, but making sure that we can meet those needs in the future. We started a discussion about what are the appropriate reserves and how, you know, where do we need to be in order to have the right contingency as well as reserves in 2012. And so for us as a county to be able to actually hand some of that money back to the taxpayers now, I think is in pretty short order and states a lot about the fiscal responsibility at the county as a whole.
Yeah, so this amounts to basically about $1.5 million each year that it stays in people's pockets instead of going to the county. The county does have good resource base because of the developments that occurred in the 2000s, good resorts and second homes, and there's a lot of people live in the county in rural areas, so the rural, some counties in Oregon are really struggling, even though they're prosperous in a way, they're doing well, you don't have much rural land, and so they don't have the same kind of tax base, so we've been kind of blessed by having that.
Each penny is about $200,000 when we're talking about 6 cents and 3 cents, so it's really an interesting discussion. So, sorry, I was getting ahead of myself, speaking over your next slide. So at this point, switching to Health Department, Stabilization Center, and Health Services funding. So these are our budget highlights. The budget was just adopted in June and went into place on July 1st. So that's what we're talking about is this fiscal year, July to next June 30th. Stabilization Center is the concept of really helping somebody that's having a bad day, intoxicated, bad choices. If they don't need to go to jail, sometimes an officer is looking for a reason to get them to jail because they need to be stabilized and out of a bad situation. This can be that opportunity. It's really connecting somebody with services and helping the officer get back on the street and also getting that person what they need. So that's the big picture of a stabilization center. We're talking about facility improvements, what do we need to build, where could it be housed. We already have some of the health department staff that does these mobile crisis action team and the shifts that are needed to cover this work. Where's the home for this? And that's the next discussion about building something. Also, year after year, we struggle with the complexity of health service funding. We want to do good things for the citizens. Public health, behavioral health, mental health, all the different inspections we can do. But what did the federal government do last year or 2 years ago, and when is that funding going to flow? What are the choices of the state legislature? When is this funding going to flow, and how long is it going to be here? And what can we do in our general fund? So this is always a complex issue. Each year, we have this discussion at the annual budget committee meeting. It took me a couple of years as your representative on the budget committee to really understand the scope of what was going on. And I would boil it down to saying we're managing change. We're managing how health is funded, what needs are, and where is it going to be in the future. Sometimes we get a little panicky about if we have to lay somebody off or if we're expanding or contracting a different service. But in the big picture, we want to do great things for all the citizens here in Deschutes County.
And then, as many of you know, marijuana was legalized in the state of Oregon, and so we had heard about millions of dollars of tax revenue coming to the county, which was never a motivating factor for us. We wanted to make sure that we had appropriate regulations to be able to manage change such as that. So the county so far has received about $442,000 in revenue, and we have dedicated part of that funding to the Sheriff's Office for a detective, which will be an individual who works with the Central Oregon Drug Enforcement Team. And we have one single point of accountability for an individual who would be able to take the calls and be able to go and look into some of the challenges in terms of my neighbor's home. I continue to smell something that's really offensive. It's in the rural part of the county, and I'm not sure if they're legal, if they have a license. This person would be able to do that work and be able to tell, in fact, if that property has a license, doesn't have a license. We, as you may have read, have a challenge with the Oregon medical marijuana program in terms of there are about 700, almost 800 licensed marijuana medical grow operations in Deschutes County, of which we are not allowed to know where those are. So the district attorney, to his credit, and the sheriff sent a letter to the state saying we are the rightful owners of that information. We can have access, but you ask us to call individual properties or call in and question on a particular property, onesie, twosie, huge waste of resources. Let us know where those properties are. That so when someone calls, we can say, no, in fact, they do have a license. They should be operating. You should be able to smell it, see it, hear it. So we will go out and be able to make sure that they're in compliance. But right now, that's not how it works. Even better, the Sheriff's Office, the District Attorney then sent every address of Deschutes County to the state and said, well, then can you confirm these addresses, please? I thought it was a little cheeky, but it was a great, we're all about minimizing our spend and maximizing our resources. And so how do we do that? It's by making sure that we have the information that we need to do our job as well. So kudos there. We also receive, so we anticipate that we will receive about $350,000 a year in revenue from marijuana grows in Deschutes County. And that is based on canopy size and licenses in the unincorporated area of the county. And we did receive separate funding through the Oregon Health Authority, about $400,000, and those are being dedicated toward health services, drug and alcohol services, prevention, adult mental health programs, and such. So we do hope that funding is ongoing because with the legalization of marijuana, we will have additional challenges that from a health services and a public safety perspective, we need to manage and address as well.
So one of the big topics that we deal with in a variety of ways is just managing for growth. And one of the things that really became clear this budget session, it started to come up the year before a little more too, was just the need for some additional staff just because of the growing population. I think we've grown about 20,000 people in the last 3 years maybe. We'll see when they do the census in 2020 whether how close we are to 200,000. But so we have added some staff, and these are just impacts that from the assessor's office has more tax accounts, community justice with regard to just adult parole, probation, juvenile issues, community development. We've had some real increases in staff there, both because one of the big things that happens with more growth is there's more conflicts between neighbors about growth. Some people want to do one thing with their land, somebody else doesn't like it, and we have intricate land use rules. So we've added numerous people in community development within parts of the planning, and then also within compliance, and then within the building department also. The road department obviously is planning because there's a new funding package at the state level, which is contribute to our fund budgets for road improvements, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, as well as just the road department growing in terms of the use. We get more money from road gas taxes. So, and then Sheriff's Office and solid waste are both things that are seeing a lot an increase in need for services.
So future capital projects. So we used to have a couple rates on your tax bill. One of them was for the library, building out the libraries, and those came off the taxes a couple years ago, many years ago for some of the areas. And also the fairgrounds. That was a 20-year bond, general obligation bond, that has come off the taxes. So at this point in time, there's no Deschutes County, countywide, or even regional general obligation bonds on the taxes. But we're going to have future capital needs, and I'm not advocating for one right now, but the fact is, if we had a new judge in our court system, we would have to add a new courtroom with the support facilities, and it would really add a big capital project to our downtown campus. The sheriff's office, we added 144 beds a few years ago, but in the future we'll have maybe the stabilization center could be there. There's talking about different configurations of that property. A parking facility possibly, so at some point we really need to do the next capital wave. We haven't had to do that recently, but we do need to prepare for that. We've been able to lower that tax rate a little bit, but also we're cognizant of being able to have dollars in the bank for maintenance of the facilities, and then thinking about the future and the next big expense that might come. Think about the population growth. Redmond is really coming on location these days. When the Deschutes County needs to have more capacity there, at some point we may just need to build the county building there possibly. We have a few different facilities right now. Great partnership with the city of Redmond. So the capital needs in the future are just going to start to creep up on us, and someday we're going to have to pull the trigger on some of that. Traffic, yeah, so the road, I think we're talking about roads very specifically here in a few moments, right?
Yeah, we can skip that. We might want to pick up the pace.
That's fine, yeah, okay, there you go. Pick up the pace.
JP, are we to pick, okay, I was channeling JP. So you're next.
We've got so much to say.
I think you are working for local businesses. There we go.
Sorry.
We rehearsed this. I'm just kidding.
No, Whitney kept changing it. Told us, oh no, you're going to do this differently. No, we kept changing it.
We did.
So, just working for local business, just want to highlight a couple things that we've tried to do responsive to there's increased needs to do things like with regard to our community development does inspections, etc. Rather than pass all of that cost on to businesses because of the increased needs, we're able to reduce those fee increases. The same with development fees. We've had a lot more complicated land use things over the last couple of years than we've had in the past. We were able to roll back and increase those. Those are still have been increasing. And we also just want to, we're partners in a way because of our lottery. We get the lottery fund dollars. We pass on to various economic development groups, including EDCO and the groups in Redmond, Ready, the Sun River La Pine Economic Development, and the Sisters Economic Development. And so we're partners there. We try to work with the chambers also to promote the interests of business. And we spend time working on that individually, and then with some overlap.
So next on to capital projects, and many of you, I know the Chamber was very involved, as well as EDCO, in helping the state secure historic funding for transportation, House Bill 2017. We do have a slight increase in the gas tax, and so what will you be getting in return for that? What's the return on the investment? So in Deschutes County, over the next 5 years, we will have a 334% increase in our ability to provide capital improvement projects, and that is critical to the maintenance and preservation of the system that we have. We have an incredible asset that here in Deschutes County that we want to make sure that we maintain and take care of. We have over 900 miles of roadway in Deschutes County, and over the next 10 years, we'll be able to address a lot of those needs. And I'll move them to the next. So Open Redmond Highway, which is the alternative to Highway 97, an important route in our community. That area, safety issues, for any of you that live in that area will understand exactly what I'm talking about. And so we're going to be making some improvements there soon. We're currently doing the scope on that. We're anticipating a roundabout. And for those, I know that you either love them or you dislike them. But in terms of safety, they work and they do move people and traffic through. So that'll be about a $2.5 million project, and we anticipate completion September of 2020.
And in the beautiful little sleepy town of Tumalo, we've got this highway going right through the middle of it, and we're working on the next generation of crossing You can see there's two different proposed ideas, an overcross, undercross, or the roundabout. Right now, we're really prioritizing now, trying to put the funding together, working with the state. Federal grant application has gone in recently. But we do have a horizon where there's more money available to start thinking bigger and do some of these big capital improvements in the transportation system.
I would add that part of the reason that we can address the Cook Avenue area is because we also received an earmark in House Bill 2017 for Terrebonne in the Lower Bridge area, as well as Bend was able to secure some funding also for the Cooley 97 area, so that's a partnership that we'll be working on as well. $50 million for that, so more to come. But this project probably would have fallen off the list if we didn't have Terrebonne and the funding from the legislature as well. So as you're going to the gas pump and you're saying, oh, that additional gas tax, we hope that some of these improvements will really help to maintain the asset that we have, but also enhance it to meet the needs.
In pavement preservation, we like to drive down smooth roads. We have a lot of existing roads, and really they do need some maintenance, either chip seal or resurfacing, widening, curb edge work. So we've got some multiple projects here in the project list, and we're able to, the future looks bright for being able to commit to some of these larger projects. So you can see 300,000, 479, 558,000. So we're able to partner with local jurisdictions, but also really maintain those rural roads that are existing in our system. It's a bright future from that House Bill 2017, which will be paying a little bit more in gas taxes, but it's going right to those roads.
So as most of you know, the county stretches on 97 from up by Terrebonne, the River Gorge down to the line, and one of the earmarked projects is a large funding source from the state, Last Transportation, to rework some of the challenges they have there with people speeding across. Again, the highway goes right through the middle of town, and so we're working on a refinement plan for that and a project going forward.
On to economic development. One of the things that the county identified years ago is that do what we do best and allow our partners to do what they do best and lead on them when appropriate. So we have an excellent partner in the economic development of Central Oregon, and that's EDCO. I see that Kip is here in the back. So for us, instead of standing up our own department, which a lot of counties have their own economic development arm, we have EDCO that we partner with and the chambers as well. So the business loan fund was something that we started during the recession. We had an old fund from HUD that we dusted off and decided to add some extra funds to. And the hope was to be able to retain and attract businesses during one of the most dire times of our history and the economic times in Central Oregon. So we created the program in 2010, and it has helped to create, and I believe this number is probably a little bit low, I think it might be even closer to 1,300, but local jobs. And so what happens is a business will come forward, and we use EDCO, as our partner. So they vet those projects, they vet those, look at the business plans, make sure that the numbers work, and that we are lending money to viable organizations. And so we have a list here of just some of the past recipients. And so we ask that they keep those positions for a minimum of 2 years. They are average salary of $62,000, but they need to be family wage jobs. And then if they keep the jobs for a certain period of time, they are able to turn that into a loan, from a loan to a grant. And so that way it's cash for them to be able to expand. And that was the hope. So we've been able to keep businesses here. And we've also been able to, with limited resources in Oregon, to say, hey, we're open for business. This is a unique way for us to come to the table with a little bit of cash that they make a commitment of staying, and we make a commitment of funding, and we can create jobs together. So I think it's been a unique partnership that we've been able to offer in Deschutes County. And so thank you to EDCO and to VDAB, which helped us with a lot of the funds and the projects too.
Now on to the hot topics. So these are the things that really are keeping us busy right now, and some of the big things that are happening. So we do have our 911 public safety radio system. It's a county-wide system. Most of this system is working very well. There are some issues in Bend, coverage issues, and there's continued problems. We take these problems very seriously. Recently, we had an upgrade of an antenna at St. Charles to help some coverage issues. We're working on optimizing a timeline to get another permanent site here on the west side of Bend to really balance out the system. We're working on hiring the project manager for the technical division, so really adding capacity in that technical management of the radio system, but also the record system and other computer systems, the phone system themselves at 911. So we're looking forward to having that person on board, and then we're going to really be able to answer our questions and resolve system issues for years to come. So we're looking forward to getting all this resolved.
So we're gonna. So these are things we thought they're hot on our list. I don't know if they're on everybody else's. We can ask questions about them. I am getting with 911. I just want to say, you know, there's been a lot of publicity about this. This is a complicated system. You know, it was decided about 2 years ago to go from an analog radio system to a digital radio system, which is a different kind of system. Which I don't know if everybody was quite aware of how different it is or how it works differently. There were some decisions made early on, or well, I guess after it was planned, that kind of went, things didn't get finished or whatever, that we are working hard now to finish. So I'll kind of reiterate what Commissioner Bone said, because there's been a lot of press about this. I'm happy to answer any other questions about it, but you know, it's kind of hard to figure out if you're not really a tech person, and we're having to rely on people that we've hired to do that. But I think the latest we've heard this week was some changes in the phone, what's called firmware, the radio firmware, and in radio speakers. A lot of the user agencies, law enforcement, have spent a lot of time. It's been very difficult for them. Hopefully we haven't lost any lives or people haven't put in jeopardy. I mean, they may have been put in jeopardy, but nothing negative has happened from that we're aware of. But we are taking it very seriously for the idea that we're following that, and we're hearing some good things. We're meeting again with our advising technical consultant this week to try to find out more what can be done going forward, what upgrades we might do, what additions we might do. Do we need any more towers? Because it's a new technology, and if any of you in business put in new technology, there's things you don't really realize going in. It's been really about trying to get that information back up. So. The next hot topic is marijuana update. I was here when the Chamber had the forum on marijuana and featured the sheriff, police chief, a grower, and a consultant. Our scope really isn't about retail sales of marijuana very much, although we have a company that proposed in the county lands. Most of it has to do with production and growing of marijuana. The county opted into the marijuana production 2 years ago, set up regulations, and we've had collectively now a lot of experience both trying to understand the different facets of the industry, the different state regulatory parts of the industry, the operating health authorities, Mr. May said, the OLCC, we heard from them here at the Chamber Forum. One of the things I realized is we have a very different system than other states do. A lot of states have put marijuana production in the industrial areas. The state of Washington has made it restricted within counties, the amount of growth. California deals with it differently, each one's different. So we're working through the regulations now. There's been just number-wise about 40 grows that have been approved through the county. We've heard about 10 appeals from neighbors. It's not particularly popular with most neighbors. We get land use ones where neighbors are on both sides of an issue. That hasn't been true for people with regard to production. This is the fact. So we can probably answer questions about it, but that's kind of the status of it.
And we have roughly 18 licensed with OLCC as well as land use with Deschutes County, and not all of those are actually operating, but they do have a license. So we do the land use. We have 40 applications that have come to the county, but then they have a secondary process to get a license in the state of Oregon. And so that's a much more onerous process from that side. So recreational marijuana grow sites, 18 in Deschutes County.
So Measure 91 was voted on 4 years ago this November, and it's taken a few years to get to this point, and it's just been interesting because we fill the room every time we talk about it. Right now we're talking about our regulations and narrowing the path even more from what we did originally, with what we've seen on the ground. NUA 10 were the zones, is proposed to be removed from any growing, the commercial production of marijuana. So it's been very tense and fills the room every time we have the discussions in Deschutes County.
So let's talk about solid
There we
waste.
go. Let's talk about trash.
That's you.
What's that?
How are we doing, Jamie? Okay.
Well, so the solid waste, we're just updating that we are engaged in a process now with the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, looking at what we're going to do our landfill. Kind of is full, which is estimated in about 10 years. We have a committee of people, we've hired a consultant to look into this. I mean, most counties in the state don't have their own landfill. I think we've been real fortunate to have one that's close to the center of the county. We have transfer stations throughout the county that work really well. We actually have lower rates than a lot of the counties do for hauling, et cetera. But we're looking at whether we would ever site another landfill in Deschutes County. Or whether we would haul garbage, et cetera, to other places. And then we're also looking at ways to change with the recycling market, because a lot of the recycled materials have gone overseas, primarily to China in the last few years, and we're not now as interested in that, so we're doing that. So we're working on that in that committee.
The top 10 may offer a suggestion for what to do with our solid waste. And so housing, what is the role of housing in Deschutes County? So the county, most of the growth will happen within cities. We have Senate Bill 100 in Oregon, and that really outlines where growth will happen. But we know that the county has land holdings, and so there are times where we partner with our cities to be able to either exchange lands or to be able to try and meet their needs. La Pine. So we were able to donate land where they were able to work with the state of Oregon and do some multifamily senior housing, and that would be an example. House Bill 4079 came online, and that was a competitive process for cities above 25,000 and below 25,000 population. Oddly enough, Redmond and Bend both were allowed to go forward and see if they can meet that. And so, actually, I think they're competing in the same, okay, so they're competing in the same, okay, I got that wrong. So, which makes it interesting because we love all of our cities the same, right? So we have land in the city of Redmond, and so we are talking with them about what that might look like, and we've also met with the city of Bend, and we have supported their ability to go forward for their affordable housing. What it will allow is land outside of an urban growth boundary to be brought in and meet certain criteria for affordability, and it can be it's the plan that a city comes up with. I think the two plans are very different, but it allows that we would have at least a affordable housing project that would happen in our community, which can add a lot of housing onto the market almost overnight. It would take about 5 years, I think, in terms of what to go through the process and kind of do the zoning. But the other way that we are involved is we have a lot of lands that are around the county that are not necessarily resource lands, where the soils classification are not necessarily such that you can grow much outside of rock. And so a lot of those lands were classified and zoned as exclusive farm use lands back 30, 40 years ago. And so those lands are now lands that we are looking at in terms of what could be another use for them. So we're looking at a non-resource land project, and it would be an opportunity with the community to talk about what policies we would use and what values we would have, and how we then would put that into zones that maybe we can take those lands and maybe put a single family home on them, or be able to use them a little bit differently. But also get away from using scarce resource like water onto a soil that can't retain the water, grow anything, but still we want you to try and farm it. So it's trying to reconcile what we value in terms of protecting farmland and agricultural lands, but also recognizing that we have housing needs in our communities as well. And then we also look at ways of partnering with Habitat for Humanity and other community partners. And then we look at every time that we take in a property in tax foreclosure, those are opportunities for us to maybe get those properties back on the tax rolls and into home ownership. And so we again work with Housing Works, which is our housing authority, and then we also work with Habitat for Humanity in each of the communities to be able to put those homes back onto the rolls. And then we also work very closely with Bethlehem Inn too, to make sure that we can serve all populations within our community.
On the legislative front, we do have relationships at the state legislature. We can get to the federal government, and and we can advocate or push for specific bills or different topics. Some of the big items that come to us are the land use system the state of Oregon put in place many years ago. It's getting more acute, more contentious about some of the choices that are being made. We advocate for a regional land use opportunity sometimes. State legislature says no. They said, well, let us do a non-resource lands program in Deschutes County. The land use system says no. So there's just changes that could or should happen at the state legislature, and we have an opportunity to be in Salem with other commissioners and make some pretty strong choices. There's other topics here also, housing very specifically. What does it mean to put a second property on a rural land? So, ADUs units. That's been discussed. It almost happened. There was discussion. What could happen in 2019? What are the possibilities? So we can get out there and really make a presence. If you have ideas or want to advocate for something, communicate with us on that. We'll help put some horsepower behind some ideas if we want to go in that direction. So you want to take some other
The ADU
topics?
is an important one for us to, so right now not lawful, so we're trying to get that as an option. So legislative priorities, PERS, and then PERS, and then PERS, I think. When I first came into office, we were paying for, in terms of the cost for employee in Tier 1, 10.1%. We're now at 28.1 and going steadily to 36 pretty quickly. Unsustainable, but commitments have been made as well, and I think that is something that the county clearly has as a priority of how do we meet the needs of the individuals who have been, commitments have been made and honor that, but also meet the needs of being able to provide service, which is what we are supposed to be doing as well. So that's a legislative discussion that's always at the top of our list. But other great things that come our way, clearly housing, transportation, and I'm not sure what other
And I mentioned
pieces.
it's a judge before, so if the state legislature puts a list together about what counties would get the next judge, just for the court system, it takes a couple years to get that in place, but we need to advocate for that. The throughput of our public safety system is important. If someone goes to jail, they need to have a charges filed or not, needs to see a judge or not, go to prison or jail or release, whatever the situation is. But as the system grows and if it gets too big for itself, it really starts to fail. So we do need a judge, we need a little bit more throughput capacity, so we're going to advocate for that. And we did it last session, but each session we need to start pushing for that.
We try to run offense, but mostly it's defense. So we do have the most restrictive regulations for marijuana of the county, and it's because we are both, with that urban and rural mix for us is unique. And so the state legislature tends to want to take away local control of our ability to work through our own community and establish what we want to see versus what they might want to see. So we are on point often to make sure that we can get to Salem quickly and have our voice be heard. And I personally feel that that's where the policies are set. And if we want to complain about things, then great, let's get involved. And if we don't want to go to Salem and get involved, then we probably shouldn't complain.
I think
Okay,
we're set
top
here.
10. Okay, I'm going to go over
Or
here.
if there's any burning
Is there-
questions, or
Yeah,
any
we have somebody
afterwards.
who's just, okay, yes, Jenny. Oh, sorry, we'll get to Q&A. Oh.
Burning questions right after something.
Don't you think Commissioner Bainey should drink some more beer? You know, it would be more fun.
I might ask you to click for me, Whitney. Can you or no? Can you? Okay. Because I'm gonna actually. Well, I want to be able to. I guess I can go here. That'll work. Now, my colleagues haven't seen this either. So, okay, so who's seen the top 10 before? Anybody? Okay, great. All right. So you know that every year I say I don't do this alone. That we have a team, and most important to the team is Judith Ure, who's never come to a State of the County to actually see the top 10. And she's here tonight. She has some dark humor. Oh boy, and it's funny, and you can tell when we were writing the top 10 because the door is closed, and oh man. And if Joe Sidoni ever got a hold of my computer and saw some of the photos of things that we had pulled up, oh, I'm in trouble. So I'll be calling you John if he's still here. Okay, so this year we started off with, if we could go back, because there's a little bit of, you know, and my grandma used to say, and I think Tom Anderson just recently said, those that live in glass houses should not throw rocks. So I pity the day that the city of Bend ever decides to do a top 10 about the county. And so this is the time that I want to say, if you work in the city or your counselor, You may want to leave now. And there are issues that just continue to come up, and we can't help but poke fun of them. So these are our unfiltered county solutions to community issues. And yes, that's Billy Joel, for those of you that are wondering. Okay, number 10. City runs out of money to complete 14th streams. Let's just dive right in, right? County Road Department offers helpful signage. Look, there's a fiscal clip ahead. Oh, Christian, let's get on those signs. All right, we're just getting warmed up. Number 9. 14-year effort to resolve your pond silt issue continues. Good golly, I mean, really, raise your hand if that's just, I can drive a backhoe. Let's go out there and do this. All right, so we have that poor committee that's been meeting, and the county suggests that the advisory committee resort to divine assistance. It's like, please, Lord, now help us. Okay, all right. Number 8, Bend residents told to remove artificial turf from their backyard. All right, so the county gives the owners some ideas for a different type of grass. But it's not artificial. Okay, I'll have to call them and offer that. Number 7, crowded field leaves candidates struggling to stand out. County suggests pre-election runoff to narrow the field. Look at that. And we have, is it Leonardo the cat out here? There you go. It's got them all. Sally, where's Sally? There you are. Look at you. I know. Okay. All right. Number 6. Sewer project cost creates an uproar. I like this one. County suggests privatized facilities for every home. Look at that. Smile. I'm loving it. Just do it. It's a Starbucks, pretty. Okay. Cheaper than $25,000, right? Okay. Number 5. Bend continues to seek solution to pothole problem. And the county landfill jumps at the opportunity to partner. There you go. We'll fill those potholes, Sally. Don't you worry. We've got some trash. Okay. Number 4. City struggles with housing shortage. You can count on the county. County helps by securing federal funds with some naming rights attached. Look at that, a city hall. City hall. Okay, there we go. Well, federal funds always have strings attached. Okay, number 3. Unusual Bend mayoral candidate attracts national attention. And the county clerk's office launches an investigation into the election. Who said you can't provide Putin with a kitty cat on a computer? Look at that. All right, number 2. This is the one. Good thing I'm not in elected office soon. Bend Bulletin faces printing circulation challenges. Sorry, Julia. County offers foolproof ideas to solve phone problems. All right, that's dark, but it's a little bit funny, just a little bit. Okay, and the number one county solution to a community challenge is Bend solicits designs for new roundabout art. The county's submission.
That was fabulous. What a way to send this out. Thank you again for your years of service. Everybody, a round of applause for Mr. Meade. All right, so now's the time where we get an opportunity for a little Q&A. We're going to have to keep it brief. There's not a lot of time. I'm going to give our awesome CEO, Katie Brooks, the first opportunity to ask a question. She's also going to help me come around the room with the mic while I come and grab the mic from Phil Henderson.
Thanks everybody for coming tonight. And so, County Commissioners, thank you for your service. Everybody, this is not an easy job. Please, a round of applause. And thank you so much for doing all you've done. So my question is, There are a lot of chamber members and just businesses in the community who are trying to recruit in a 3% unemployment rate. So a lot of folks are coming from outside, a lot of folks are still living here, looking for a place to live. So my question to you is, with partnership in mind with the city of Bend and Deschutes County, how do you folks think that you are progressing in looking at urban expansion areas and resolving some of the housing shortage that we're experiencing right now? Go ahead and go through.
On the east side of Bend, we have EFU land, so just designing the opportunity for what is that urban reserve. The state says you can't even talk about the EFU zone parcels. Some of those parcels have never been farmed. They're zoned that, but they're just not a productive farmland. So really working with the state, making sure legislative change happens, advocating in the long run very seriously about having that opportunity. So think about if there's a vision. What does it look like 20 years, 50 years from now? That's from the city going out to the rural county. We want to work together on that. We do advocate for an urban reserve zone outside of the city of Bend. And there's other topics.
So I would say that we need, similar to what we were doing around transportation funding, is we need to do it together. I think the opportunity, when the chamber speaks about an issue that matters to the business community, that matters in terms of the legislative push on any changes that we might want to make. I think getting involved in terms of supporting housing developments, and so if they're working with your neighbors, if it's interesting, where people don't want to see multifamily in their neighborhood. Quite frankly, multifamily is where a lot of people started. And so we have to also be thinking about, as we have a challenge that's presented to us, how far are we really willing to go to address that need? And so I think part of it is working with the business community to coalesce that voice in an advocacy sort of way, working with local government to not only support developments, but then also support legislative change. And then I think also it's the one-on-one with you and your neighbors, talking about what it means to be a part of a community and how we really want to address housing and what that looks like.
So I'll just say a couple things. So I was a builder in the building business for about 15 years now. I have a pretty good idea about the cost of homes. I think if we can't get to the point where there's homes that you can buy for less than $200,000, we're never going to get to what we're talking about, because everybody isn't going to just live in apartments. I think it's interesting as a native Oregonian that we just choose to pretend we live with no land around our cities that we can actually build on. And it's not just a problem in Bend or Redmond, but it's a problem in Medford, it's a problem in Coos Bay, it's a problem in Tillamook, it's a problem in Boardman, and everywhere in Oregon, this problem, the Hood River, the Columbia Gorge, even so I think we have to really look at what we're requiring housing to be now. The houses a lot of us grew up in you couldn't even build them anymore. They're no longer legal. They don't have all the things that we've created regulations that require, the development codes, the building codes, the energy codes, the land use codes. We've got to the point where it's like if you had a car, the only car you get to drive is $40,000. You can't have a $5,000 car anymore because it doesn't meet the codes. It doesn't meet the social needs. So I think the real question in front of all of us as Oregonians is housing as important as all the other social goals that are dictated by all these other regulations and codes and land use planning? Because if it isn't, we're never going to have affordable housing. 15 years ago, you could buy houses under $200,000 in Bend. For now they're gone. You could still build homes at that if you didn't have the regulations, you didn't have the land use, didn't have the SDCs, everything. But we need to look at that as a bigger policy issue. So that's my view, besides the other things they've talked about. And I do think business has to lead the way on this, because there's no group to advocate. The people that need this housing aren't going to be the ones that make the changes. It's the people in the chambers and the EDCOs and it's the people within government. We have the same problem when we hire people. So I think we have to lead on that, but it's a statewide issue, and we see it when we meet with other county commissioners. So,
thank you.
Other questions in the room, either side, right there?
Good evening, my name is Jenny O'Keefe. I'm the executive director at REACH in Redmond. We serve youth, kindergarten through high school. Tammy, I've had an opportunity to hear you speak at length about some of the marijuana issues that we face in Deschutes County. First of all, I want to thank you for your depth of knowledge and the research that you have done, to the breadth of and the future and the foresight that you have in this issue. Thank you so much for that. My question is going back to the numbers that you shared earlier, and I don't expect exact to the penny, but can you tell us approximately how, of the money that we are receiving, what is the percentage of the sales in the county, and is there a net profit that we are seeing compared to the services that we have had to implement and provide in order to adjust to that? And lastly, what percentage is being spent on youth education and prevention?
Well, I'll start there, not enough. And I don't have a number for you. So most of the challenges that we have for the county is that it's the conflict between where it's grown versus where it's purchased and sold. And so as Commissioner Henderson mentioned, we have 2 dispensaries in Deschutes County, and I think there are 18 or so that are in the city of Bend. And so we wouldn't receive the tax revenue off the dispensaries in Bend. It's based on the canopy size and a formula that's given to the counties. So I don't have a number. I would look at our administrator if you have any idea of what's generated. As a, yeah, oh, in terms of, so what's grown on account in the county and then sold in dispensaries, you know, I don't know how we would calculate that.
There was a statewide formula that was passed a couple years ago that allocates the total percentage of sales tax within each county. The state gets a portion, both cities and counties get a portion of that overall tax dollar. And then within that, it gets even more complicated in terms of the number of dispensaries within the county, the number of growing operations, and the canopy size among those growing operations. So overall, it's roughly 10%, but then it gets skewed based on the formula application to the state bodies.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so to further answer that, I think within the county, it's not a net gain tax dollars. I mean, we spend between community development, planning, enforcement, the sheriff's office, and the health department, and I think we spend everything in those that we get in taxes. It's not, we don't get as much tax dollars as the city of Bend does. I'm not sure what they get or how they spend it, but for us it isn't, there's no.
But I think to your question, regardless of how people feel about the legalization of marijuana, I feel like it was a ready, fire, aim. We didn't necessarily have what was necessary in terms of the planning and enforcement at the state level. Clearly, the counties were left to try and come up with regulations of which very little clarity in terms of what is reasonable or not. What does that mean for our health services departments? What does that mean for our students, outreach, education? All of that seems to be coming online after the fact. And so from a state perspective, I don't know that we were prepared, but here we are. So it's a great question, and for us, it's just a zero-sum game in terms of the revenue. Now, some would say, now the industry is an important industry for the state of Oregon, and it diversifies economies. So there's a conversation on that side of the equation too, but it's how do we marry those together and share community values that meet the needs on both sides.
Katie, you've got somebody over there, I thought?
Yes, I have. Councilor Russell has a question.
I'm so sorry. Are we still friends?
Well, you got some really good laughs out of me, so thank you for that. And the Mirror Pond, that picture of us being skeletons, I know I'm wondering about that today, but I'm hoping for a fast and smart solution. Always. Thank you for all the ways we partner with you, and our worlds overlap so much and we depend on each other, and I wanted to point out one thing, which is often sort of our engagement with our neighbors, with our cities, with the county that we operate in, and also the ability sometimes to go to Salem together and influence directions of policies and then come back and influence our entire community is really important. So I'm going to ask you about something where decisions that actually resonate, that start internationally, resonate locally. I'm going to talk about something very unsexy, which is our landfill. I sat in on a solid waste advisory committee the other day, and I'm really interested in it because it affects really, when I look at affordability, there's housing, there's infrastructure, there are lots of things, and efficiency of how we get around our town and how much it costs to be in our houses, but one thing is garbage pickup. And I'm really concerned about what we do with our waste because I feel like that's one of those costs that if we're smart and we move actively and quickly, we can really contain those expenses. But we need to move now, and I'm really interested in how we are going to work together, the county and the city and our franchisees and our residents, to really manage this conversation and challenge that's coming up on us really quickly.
Well, I saw you at a meeting, Sally, and so as you saw, they're halfway through the process of looking at the options. They started out looking at recycling and reuse of waste, what the current market is for recycling, which has really changed dramatically. I mentioned it earlier, but there's a lot of the purchasers of recycled materials don't want it anymore, and so some of the stuff that we learned in our budget meetings this year that's being bundled up for recycling really is just ending up in landfills because it's so expensive now to get rid of recycled material. And that's going to change in national and international markets, and so that's a real challenge. I think we've looked at other systems to sorting things. One of the big problems is everything goes into the landfill. It's commingled. And so, for instance, now we have a lot of construction waste. For a long time, they would take all wood waste and they would be able to use that and for either fuel or for other recycling. Then anything that had paint on it was rejected, so a lot of contractors just ended up putting all that in the landfill. So I think we're looking at those things, looking at what other communities do, but I think we won't know until the end of this year really what the first plan is that is going to come out with that, and then I think we're going to air that in public hearings about that to see what people think about that. Other issues that have been promoted with regard to organic waste, which is both food and vegetative waste, making yard debris mandatory, because some people do still put yard debris in their garbage. I mean, a lot of people like going to the landfill and taking their yard debris. You see a lot of people, I think they're looking at all that. There are some state regulations.
But you raised it.
Is that an answer? Is that what you're asking?
So you represent, right?
How are you going to work together and move quickly so this doesn't become a huge financial burden for our community?
Well, I think part of it is not moving quickly because we want to make sure that we exhaust each option that comes forward. So part of it is this planning process, which is why we have a horizon of about the next 10 years that we think that the lifespan is going to come to an end. The good thing is the more that we divert from the landfill, the more time, because the landfill at this point would have already have been needed to be capped, and we would have already had this conversation probably been 5 or 8 years ago. So it's because of the good work of our cities and franchisees and all the things that are happening that we've been able to divert from the landfill to save that lifespan. And so it's working together to be able to do that, and then helping the city understand what the policies are that you might want to have for your residents versus what's in the unincorporated areas of the county. The city of Bend could look different than the city of Redmond, and the unincorporated area of Deschutes County can look different as well. So those are all conversations to come.
We have a tipping fee of $55 a ton, which is the kind of the base fee that everything gets divided up from. And extending the life of that landfill is the most valuable thing we can do to keep things cost effective. But to do in the short term, we were looking aggressively at these diversions, recycling, whatever we can do. But it does start from the citizens, and you're wanting to be a partner in that too. Because if we come down and say, well, you're going to recycle the white plastic now and the blue plastic later and do some different things, it gets way too complicated. So it does need to be a partnership with everybody.
Great. So real quickly, as we continue through, I see a number of folks that really want to ask some great questions. I know Gwen's been waiting quite a while. And I'm going to, word of advice, make a question a question. Commissioners, if only one or two of you need to answer, please do so we can get through it and we can get some equal time. And then real quickly, I want to give a big shout out to our other favorite partner, 10 Barrel, tonight, for everything that they've done. Relax before we round up. There's plenty of food still here. Nobody will bite your hand if you come up. You still feel like getting a beverage. This is a really informal time. I'm going to give the mic to Gwen real quickly. I know there's a couple other people in the room, and let's get to it.
Speaking of diversion, the stabilization program is one that the county's taking the lead on, and they've been talking about it for years. It's on the budget. Is it really going to happen? What is it going to take, and what partners are needed to make that really happen?
Well, and I'd say we have those services, it's finding a home for it, and then going from an 8-hour shift during the day to 24 hours is the big step there. If we had a facility, because the jail operations is 24 hours a day manned and staffed. So going from that 8 hours a day or shift work to, oh, we're going to man this full time, all the time, that's the big choice that I think that we need to make, and we haven't done that yet. So yeah, I don't know if anybody wants to commit any more specific there, but that's what we're looking at.
So I think we have the behavioral health side, so we have a mental health respite, and then we have the sobering station. And so we have two sides of that house. And so our partners on the behavioral health side, so our crisis team will be staged out of that facility. And that piece in terms of the funding and that really is in place right now. We can stand that up. But we're wanting to secure the partnerships with like St. Charles and those, because where do individuals go when they need to detox? They're either in the jail or the emergency department. And so some of those partnerships are still coming online and we're discussing those, but we do hope that in the next, it's within the budget for us to move forward.
Excellent. I think, Katie, there was somebody, or maybe I could.
Yes, I have someone standing here, there's another one over in the middle.
Thank you very much for everything that all of you do. I have a question that may not have an answer. I'm going to try. Goal 1 for Oregon Land Use Planning is public participation. I think you guys do a fantastic job, as is Mr. Lelak over there, managing that process. But I'm wondering if at some point in time it gets kind of too burdensome for either the commission or whether or not there's certain appeals that just don't make sense. Or tonight there's an appeal on a non-visible LM barn. I mean, at some point, is it the county's responsibility maybe to kind of look at this and decide how do we make it so that appeals are maybe not more difficult, but so that when people are choosing to appeal a land use decision, that is actually relevant and there's actually impact. I don't know if there's anything
Good
else
question.
there.
So one of the things I think is important about being a county commissioner is listening to what people want to say, and we have, as you know, an elaborate land use system that creates a lot of rights for appeal. I think we as commissioners find it real frustrating because actually we go through very lengthy, very complicated hearings on land use. I mean, some of these, we had some that have over 30 or 40 questions and we go through. There's complicated things as the U.S. Supreme Court does in terms of detail, but then everything we do can be appealed, and much of it is. And so I find that one of the big issues is, well, at what point does a community or a county or whatever decide its own fate versus if everything goes at the state level? And I don't know that we haven't stopped hearing things. We could put everything to hearing officers, so you have a paid person listens to it and decides it, and then it goes on to the Land Use Board of Appeals. But those people are non-elected people we don't even know who make this huge decisions about the future of everybody's property, developments, etc. And I don't know what we do to limit the appeals. Because I still feel that it's like part of my job to hear people out if they want to, but it's really, I feel like we're tail and Salem's the dog, and we just kind of get away. Where, I mean, it's a lot of you have probably been to hearings, but they're very complicated.
It boils down to statewide leadership. If the state of Oregon likes this land use system, it's acute and it's painful right now, and it's been maturing for many years. And it starts with leadership in the governor's office. It's very political. It's a majority party and a minority party, so we don't need to go any farther, but it's political.
Commissioner Beatty, anything?
Well, I thought you were trying to have us not.
I know, but you're on your-
I'd say it's costly too, because we oftentimes it's $250 or a percentage of the fee, and does that really cover the costs of what it takes? The answer is no. So part of that would be a legislative change, but I hear what you're saying, but our job is we like to hear them because we're the body that's accountable and elected.
Perfect. And speaking of shameless plug, if you want to be in leadership, leadership bid applications are out right now, and they're due on the 24th.
Hey, leadership band, alumni in the room. Woohoo! Right? Lots of them.
Never miss an opportunity, huh?
Right? Go ahead.
Gotta build more leaders like you folks.
Hi, Lydia Levin, here, Architects. My question was you're gonna have to. My question goes back to the landfill thing. I recently tried to spearhead a clamshell recycling initiative at my office. It didn't last very long. Our center, our landfill's not taking clamshells, so there's white strawberries in.
And so that led me to wonder, and this conversation you guys brought up with that problem we're having with our recycling led me to wonder, have we done any research? Have you done any research, or do you think that our community would support a plastic bag ban or a straw ban or something to help with that diversion?
I'd say we're doing the analysis right now, a solid waste advisory committee. What are the real numbers? What are the real facts out there? We've got aggressive recycling, but it needs to make financial sense, or we need to subsidize it, and that's the choice. Do you want us to take those general fund dollars and start paying to have the clamshells recycled or transported somewhere, which may not be used? So the reality of the situation is it just does cost to gather and try to recycle.
Yeah, we are subsidizing recycling right now, and I think that if the general public were saying, well, wait a minute, I may not want to do that, there's a value there. But I think the conversation that you're talking about is one that I would not want to do as a county-wide, because I think that the value of a Redmond and the value of a Bend may be different. And something of an initiative like that, in my opinion, in my experience, would be that you would want to start small. So, I would not stand in the way of a community wanting to do that, but clearly anything that doesn't get into the landfill is something that we don't have to pay to try to move around or figure out what to do with. So anything that, again, is going to divert, and our numbers are around, we try to get to 45% diversion, which is extraordinary, quite frankly, to try and divert that much waste going into a landfill. But we value that diversion so we can save that landfill and keep your costs low. So any community initiative that wants to get started and is successful, yay, I think is wonderful. Countywide, I just think that, it's local control for each community, and so the county in an incorporated area could have that conversation, but I wouldn't want to be heavy-handed and do it for the county as an entirety.
Okay, we have a question in the back.
So Tammy, I thought maybe to honor your top 10, Brian here, we could maybe talk about mental health and how important it is, and the fact that maybe we could have a mental health week in Deschutes County, and we would really need the request to the Deschutes County to close all the roads for the first week of July so we can enjoy that.
So, I will just take a moment to say that the state of Oregon is going through a refresh of the behavioral health system. I mean, our system is fragmented and not meeting the needs of either our youth or our adult population. And it's crazy, those kids that are toddlers and have mental health challenges, they grow up to be adults that then get into the system, and we then are befuddled with that we're, how are people ending up in the system without their needs met? And so, thank you, Kyle, also known as Ryan, for bringing that up, because yes, we should close those roads and have a mental health week. Thank you.
I see you have a question over there, do you think? No? Oh, there it is. $20. Just kidding.
You guys are the best deal in town. So I've seen all the formulas when you do the annual budget and staffing and all the studies, and you do some 39% of the budget goes to employees. I see emails from the three of you at all times of day that I didn't know existed. You're probably the best deal in town. If you ever did your hourly rate, you wouldn't be doing this. But a night question, how do we determine your pay? And how did we get a Yale graduate for such a dirt cheap deal?
So we have an elected officials compensation committee. It's comprised of the citizen members of the budget committee. They do comps of our like counties, and they look at all elected officials, whether that's the assessor, the sheriff, the district attorney. Really, they look at which we do a stipend to the district attorney, but we have nothing to do with our pay, and it's based off what the elected official compensation committee deems as appropriate for us.
Great question. Okay. Any final questions in the room? Oh.
Good evening. Thank you for the presentation. It was great. I love the top 10. My name is Brian, and I'm
the other Brian.
I'm a U.S. Navy veteran, and I'm really happy to hear about the support of our senior veterans from the World War II and Vietnam era. What is the county doing for our new veterans who are coming into our community and getting established? What do you guys do?
Well, it's funny you asked that question, because after I was done speaking, I thought, man, did I leave myself open for who I didn't mention. But that's the case. This is for all veterans. I mean, we have relationships with all the veterans organizations, you know, VFW, American Legion. We've got those guys out there. They're on call. They're ready to go. Veteran Service Officers is who it is. So I sure didn't mean to leave anybody out. Thank you very much for your service. And if there's a specific need or a group of needs that start to evolve, call us directly. That's what we do. We are the people that answer the phones and help dispatch the needs of the community.
I want to go back to your question about service and things about being on the commission and salaries. You know, when I decided to run for office, I'd done a couple other careers. And I seriously mean this, and to any of you that are in business or have thought about public service, I just think it's important, you know, and I think all three of us do, but in terms of careers, you know, and I like leadership, Ben, that you know, you promote that as the chamber, but, you know, we're only as good as the people that are involved in government, and I worry a lot. I have a son in high school, but how do you pass on the civic culture that has made our country what it is, and our state what it is, our communities what it is? And so you all need to be involved in those things. And I don't know, I don't think most public offices are really about salary or anything. There's, you know, in terms of that. So that's a good question. I just want to say something about it.
Close it up now, I think.
What, did you have a comment? I don't want to shut you off yet. I have a closing for you. Okay. Well,
answer this question.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Well, to that, before we hear final comments from our commissioners, to your service, thank you. How about a huge round of applause? So briefly, going in this order, if you give us a final comment on what you believe about your service.
Well, so Deschutes County is dialed in and has been dialed in for a long time. This is Deschutes County in Central Oregon, 4 cities, destination resorts, the tax rate, the services, all the employees, the professionalism. I am proud to represent the citizens and, you know, work with all the staff of Deschutes County just to keep this thing going. I do feel the responsibility of keeping it going right down the middle of the road. As I say, it was there before I got there.
So, yeah, I want to thank all the staff that came tonight and helps us every day in what we do. I don't know if they feel like they have to come or they're really interested. It's not like there's so many. It's not like we don't see each other. And thank all of you for coming. Like I said, what I said about public service. Remember the county fair. It's a great time. Go out there this week. See what the people are doing throughout the county.
And we'd like to thank everyone for taking time out of your busy schedules to come and learn about your county government. And we have a lot of volunteer opportunities at the county. I encourage you to get involved. We have County College, which is a way for you to come and learn what each of the departments, what they do at the county and how your tax dollars are spent. And we just closed and decided on the 30 people that will be part of this year's County College. And we have Matt is here in the room somewhere. And yes, Matt is going to be in this year's class. And so just encourage you to stay involved and know that regardless of your background, I bet we have a spot at the county where we can plug you in a volunteer capacity. And we are better the more informed that you are. So reach out to us. We are your government and we're here to serve you. So again, thank you to our team and thank you to everyone who's made time to be here tonight. Good night.